Good morning, everyone. My name is Akriti Agrawal, and this is my second video. And in my last class, I have discussed with you about the constitutional essence. That is the constitutional essence. The the constitutional essence. So, we have discussed in our last class that the constitutional essence, in the language of Juris Hans Kelsen, the grand norm of the Indian society is the Indian Constitution. And then I have told you that our Indian Constitution is divided into two parts. It has two parts. That is, firstly the fundamental part, and secondly the governance part. So the fundamental part, it covers the fundamental core principles of the constitution. That is the fundamental core principles of the constitution, which also covers, that I have told you, which also covers the basic structure doctrine, basic structure doctrine, which this basic structure was evolved in the landmark judgment of His Holiness Sri Padgal Varu Kesav Nanda Bharti versus State of Kerala, 1973 Supreme Court. Okay, so this was the watershed doctrine. And so these are the fundamental core principles which we can find in the fundamental part of the Indian Constitution, that is the fundamental duties, fundamental rights, etc. Okay, so this is the grand norm. This is the grand norm of Indian society. And the governance part, which covers the constitutional functionaries and their functions, their duties, their qualifications, their resignations, their elections, many things. That is below these fundamental core principles. That is not the grand norm. They should also, all the constitutional functionaries should also abide by the Indian Constitution, abide by these fundamental core principles in the Indian Constitution. Okay, so thereafter, I have told you that these fundamental core principles, some principles are express principles and some principles are implied principles. So that I have mentioned, written it on the board in my last class, and I'm not writing it again. So some are the express principles and some are the implied principles. So the crux is that the principles, essential core principles like justice, equality, fraternity, reasonableness, equity, good conscience, reasonable non-arbitrariness, justness, and the other principles which have been evolved through the judicial pronouncements, like right to privacy, individual autonomy. So all these principles should be there in the whole society. There are certain parts of Indian society, and the whole Indian society should subscribe to these fundamental core principles of the Constitution. Okay, so now I will tell you. Now we will move forward, and I will till this we have discussed in our last class. Okay, now we will move forward. Okay, so now let me remove this. Okay, now in order to understand this clearly, the constitution essence more clearly with respect to the things which are being involved in, which are being included in the Indian constitution, we have to understand that what are the parts of the Indian constitution. Okay, so firstly, sorry, what are the parts of the Indian society? Indian society. So our Indian society covers first the laws enacted by the parliament and state legislatures. Okay, laws enacted by the parliament, Indian parliament and the state legislatures. Secondly, the constitutional functionaries, which we were talking about, the governance part, because the governance part is also below the fundamental part. It also has to subscribe to the fundamental core principles of the constitution. So, secondly, is the constitutional functionaries. So I have told you constitutional functionaries like president, vice president, prime minister, and the members of parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, members of state legislatures, legislative assemblies, and legislative councils, and so on and so forth. Okay. So these are the constitutional functionaries which are being given power by the Indian Constitution to work for the Indian society, and they are the representatives of the people of India. Okay. Then third is the organs of the government. Organs of the government, that is the judiciary, executive, and legislature. Okay. Legislature, judiciary, and executive. Right? Then fourth is the political sovereign of India, that is the people of India. Our Indian constitution, it is the legal sovereign that I have been telling you in my last class also, that the Indian constitution is the supreme law, and the other laws, everything, all these things of the Indian society, they are below the Indian constitution. Nothing can be devoid of the Indian constitution. Okay, so the Indian constitution is the legal sovereign. Indian constitution is the legal sovereign. Constitution is the legal sovereign. Okay, I hope you can understand this what I'm writing. Okay, and people of India, we the people of India. So people of India, they are the political sovereign. Okay. So people of India, they are the political sovereign. Why political sovereign? Political sovereign means that we have in India, we have the democratic form of government. So in democratic form of government, the not the those constitutional functionaries, they are not the head of the government, they are not the supreme powers, rather the the supreme power rests in the hands of the people of India. They are the sovereign, but they are the sovereign, so that is why they are called as the political sovereign. Okay, the constitutional functionaries, they are mere the representatives of the people of India. Ultimate power rests in the hands of people of India. But that also we should know that people of India also are subordinate to the Indian constitution. That is, the political sovereign is subordinate to the to the legal sovereign, and political sovereign derive their validity from the legal sovereign. That we will be discussing when we will be coming to this point. Okay. So these are the 4 points. The Indian society covers these 4 points. Okay. So now we will be discussing these 4 points one by one. Okay. So first, let's discuss this: laws enacted by the parliament and the state legislature. Right. So now I am erasing these 3 points. Okay. Now, laws enacted by the parliament and state legislatures. So, whenever, so we know that there we have 3 forms of government. So, all 3 forms of government, that is the executive, judiciary, and legislature, they have their different works, they have their different functions to perform for the welfare of the Indian society. They all work for the welfare of the Indian society and in order to protect the interest of the people of India. Because ultimate thing is justice, to provide the to ensure the ends of justice of the people of India. They all the 3 organs of the government, they work for the welfare and to further the ends of justice of the people of India. Okay. Now, when the parliament enacts a law, obviously it is commonsensical that the parliament, the members of the parliament, they will be having the particular, a specific objective, a specific intention to in order to enact that law. Behind enacting that law, they will be having a specific intention which they want to fulfill, an object that they want to achieve. And what can be that object? What can be that purpose behind enacting the law? This is the Indian society, and it might be possible that there is some mischief in the society, some wrong going on in the society, right? Okay, I am hoping that you are getting it. Okay, so there are some wrong things going in the society. So in order to curb those evils being spread in the society, those mischief in the society, to do away with that, with the mischief in the society, and to serve the justice to those persons who are being aggrieved with that mischief, the parliament decides to enact a law so that they can do justice to the parties, to the persons, to the aggrieved persons, है ना, who are being wronged, right? तो उनका हमेशा पार्लियामेंट का पर्पस क्या होगा? एक कोई भी मिसचीफ होगा उसको दूर करना सोसाइटी से, और एक जस्टिस प्रोवाइड करना, बिकॉज जस्टिस इज अल्टीमेट. The parliament, the legislature, executive, judiciary, they all have the purpose of providing justice to the society. ठीक है, justice is the ultimate thing. ठीक है, तो उनका पर्पस तो जस्टिस प्रोवाइड करने का है पार्लियामेंट का, राइट? अब नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट, सपोज whenever the parliament enacts that law, and when the parliament enacts the law, it gives a lot of time. It's a lot of time to enact that law. Lot of discussions and debates used to be held, right? So whenever the parliament enacts a law, it is the duty of the parliament that it should inculcate the fundamental core principles, that is justice, equality, equity, liberty, so and so forth. So the duty of the parliament is to inculcate these fundamental core principles in the particular law which is being enacted, so that that law can be in line with the Indian Constitution. That is, that law can be in line, in consonance with the fundamental core principles of the Constitution. Okay, because we know that we have talked about ground norm. If in order anything, if it want to exist in the society, if any law want to exist in the society, it has to conform to the Indian Constitution. That is the ground norm, the supreme norm. It derives its validity from the Indian Constitution. So if the law is having that essence of justice, liberty, essential principles of the Constitution, then it will be termed as valid law, है ना? And it will be applicable in the Indian society, upon the Indian people. It will be applicable, right? But if it is devoid from the Indian Constitution, if it is devoid from the fundamental core principles of the Constitution, then such law cannot exist in the society. It has to be mandatorily declared as constitutionally void, constitutionally invalid, and it has to go. Such law has to go. It cannot remain in the society. So it is like this. Okay. Okay, so now in order to make it more clear, I will be telling you one thing. Okay, so we know that we have Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, we have Article 13 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so Article 13, it talks about the constitutional laws. That is Article 13 Clause 1. 13 Clause 1, it talks about the pre-constitutional laws. And Article 13 Clause 2, it talks about the post-constitutional laws. Right? So now pre-constitutional laws and post-constitutional laws, Article 13. Now first talk about this post-constitutional laws. So post-constitutional laws means that the laws which were being enacted by the Indian Parliament after the commencement of the Indian Constitution. In 1950, 1950 we have 1947, 15th August, we have got the independence. and thereafter some part of the Indian Constitution, some provisions of the Indian Constitution were being adopted on 26th of November 1949, and thereafter the remaining provisions of the Indian Constitution, they were enacted on the 26th of January 1950, 26 November 1949, and thereafter 26 January 1950. So on 26 January 1950, we have adopted the whole of the Indian Constitution, and thereafter, from there, the Indian Constitution was commenced. Okay, came into force. It came into force. Okay, so it means that those laws which were being enacted post Constitution, after the commencement of the Constitution. Okay, so this is talking about this, and pre-constitutional laws means those laws which were being enacted, obviously by the Britishers, by British India, prior to the commencement of the Indian Constitution. That is prior to 26 January 1950. Those are the pre-constitutional laws. Okay, so this is linked with the constitutional essence. I'm not uh, telling you something which is different from constitutional essence. We are going in line with that only. Okay, so this is with connected to the constitutional essence only. Okay, so now post constitutional laws. Now, when we talk about post constitutional laws, so suppose any law is being enacted by the Indian Parliament. Okay, any law is being enacted by the Indian Parliament, and that is after the commencement, so it is post constitutional. So, I have told you that the Parliament, while enacting the law, it has the duty that it should take care that the law should have the essence of the fundamental core principles of the Constitution. It should not be against the Constitution. The crux is it should not be against the Constitution. It should be in line with the Constitution. Okay. So when suppose Parliament has enacted a law, it has been enacted, it has been adopted and commenced, came into force. Now this you must appreciate that the we have the courts of law, that is the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court. Though the Honorable Supreme Court does not suo motu takes the cognizance of challenging the constitutional validity of the laws enacted by the Parliament. Supreme Court does not do it itself. Rather, we, the people of India, one of them from the Indian people, they approach the Supreme Court as the petitioner. Okay, they approach the Supreme Court as the petitioner, and they challenge the constitutional validity of the laws enacted by the Parliament. They are challenging the constitutional validity. Correct? Constitutional validity. So, constitutional validity means they are challenging a law. On what ground? What they are saying? They are challenging the law on the ground that such either the whole law or some of the provisions of the law are inconsistent with the Indian Constitution. They are devoid of the fundamental core principles of the Constitution. That is, in the law there is lack of the justice, equity, good conscience, which means that the law is arbitrary in nature. The provisions of the law are arbitrary, are unreasonable in nature, and instead of providing justice, the purpose of the Parliament is to provide justice, and that is why they have enacted the law, obviously. है ना? But instead of providing justice to the people of India, they are taking away their rights. They are prejudicing their interest. Okay. So that is why they are challenging the constitutional validity. Or we can say in the language of 13 clause 2, which article 13 clause 2 states that any law which has been enacted by the Parliament, if that law is violative of the fundamental rights of the citizens of India, then such law will be challenged before the court of law, and then the court of law will examine its validity, examine its constitutional validity, that whether actually that law is violating the fundamental rights of the citizens or not. And if it finds that yes, it is violating the fundamental rights, violating the fundamental rights means fundamental rights also is the part of the fundamental aspect. Okay, it also covers the fundamental core principles of the constitution that I have already told you. Okay, so, if it is violative, if the Supreme Court finds, after examining, if the Supreme Court finds that yes, it is violative of the fundamental core principles of the Constitution, then what the Supreme Court will do? Supreme Court will declare the law to be unconstitutional. है ना? The Supreme Court will declare the law to be unconstitutional. What is the meaning of unconstitutional? That it is not constitutionally valid. It is against the constitution. And we know that anything, any law which is against the Indian constitution, which is repugnant to the Indian constitution, it cannot exist in the society. है ना? And the consequence of declaring the law to be unconstitutional, what will be the consequence? The law will be declared as void ab initio. Void ab initio. Okay, the law will be declared as void ab initio. So in article, we are talking about this. I think I should rub this. Okay, because you will be confused otherwise. So we are talking about post-constitutional law. And when a post-constitutional law is being declared as void and illegal by the Honorable Supreme Court, then it means that it is not constitutionally valid, and the Supreme Court will declare it void ab initio. Okay, the Supreme Court will declare it void ab initio. So I want to read this provision, Article 13, Clause 2. The state shall not make any law. The state shall not make any law which takes or abridges the rights conferred by this part. The rights conferred by this part means fundamental rights. They are talking about fundamental rights. And any law made in contravention of this clause shall, to the extent of the contravention, be void. Okay, so what they are saying, that the state means the legislature, the parliament. So the parliament shall not make any such law which is taking away, which is abridging the fundamental rights of the people of India. Or indirectly we can say which is devoid of the fundamental core principles of the constitution, where there is lack of justice, liberty, equality. Okay, so if any such law is there which is taking away the fundamental rights of the people of India, then that law has to be declared as void. And herein they have not mentioned it, but it is implicit that it will be void ab initio. Okay, so this is the power of judicial review. This is the power of judicial review of the Honorable Supreme Court. Power of judicial review of the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court is judicially examining the particular law which is being challenged before it, and the after examining it, the court finds that it is against the constitution, it is not in line with the constitution, the court will declare it void ab initio. Right? Now we have to understand that what is the meaning of void ab initio? What is the effect of void ab initio? Okay, so void ab initio means declaring anything void, declaring anything non-existing in the society from its inception, from its very beginning, declaring the law to be to have never taken place. That is, its effect is non-est. Its effect is non-est. It means never to have taken place, never existed in the society. Never existed in the society, right? Never existed in the society. So void ab initio means that the law will be declared unconstitutional from its very inception. The day when the law was enacted, from there itself it will be declared as void. Declared as void means as never has taken place. It will be having the effect of non-est. It means it never existed. It will be deemed as if it never was enacted. वो कभी enact ही नहीं हुआ, वो कभी taken place ही नहीं हुआ, कभी exist ही नहीं करा वो society में. तो ऐसे बिल्कुल वहां से जहां जिस दिन उसका इनैक्टमेंट हुआ वहीं से ही, मतलब इट हैज अ रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव इफेक्ट फ्रॉम द बैक डेट, इट विल बी डिक्लेयर्ड एज वॉइड. कभी एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं किया. वॉइड, वॉइड का मतलब कभी एग्जिस्ट नहीं करना. ओके, तो द लॉ विल बी डिक्लेयर्ड एज अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल. ठीक है. नाउ आई विल गिव यू द एग्जाम्पल. ओके, so now I will be giving you the example. Acha, but before giving the example of this, I think I should tell you that I have the when this law is being challenged before the Honorable Supreme Court, there can be two situations, है ना. Either the when the Supreme Court will examine the constitutional validity of a particular law, either the after examining, the court will conclude that no, it is in line with the constitution, it has the essence of fundamental core principles of the constitution, so the court will declare the law to be constitutional, and it will be validated, because the court will say that it has derived its validity from the constitution, it is valid, and it will be applicable in India. ठीक है. तो फर्स्ट सिचुएशन कैन बी दिस. Second situation can be when after examining, court finds that no, it is not in line with the constitution and it is devoid of the essential principles, the basic structure doctrine. It is devoid of the basic structure doctrine, so it should be declared unconstitutional. Right? It should be declared as unconstitutional. I have not written that declared as unconstitutional. So these the laws which were being declared as void ab initio, which they are being declared as unconstitutional. अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, ये जो भी लॉज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की लाइन में नहीं होते उनको अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिक्लेयर कर देते हैं हमारे ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट, है ना. तो फर्स्ट व्हेन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट डिक्लेयर्स अ लॉ टू बी अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज टू ऑप्शंस. First option, either to right away declare the law to be unconstitutional and void ab initio, है ना. तभी के तभी अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल void ab initio डिक्लेयर कर दो. उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा? फ्रॉम इट्स वेरी इंसेप्शन, जब से वो स्टार्ट हुआ इनैक्ट हुआ, कमेंस हुआ लॉ, तभी से वो नॉन एग्जिस्टिंग हो जाएगा, बिल्कुल एप्लीकेबल ही नहीं होगा इंडिया में, है ना. तो फर्स्ट ऑप्शन इज अवेलेबल विद द कोर्ट इज दिस, डिक्लेयरिंग द लॉ unconstitutional. ठीक है. Second option is available with the court is not declaring the law to be unconstitutional, rather declaring the law to be constitutionally valid. in line with the constitution. But the court has find that yes, there is problems. There is problems in the there are problems in the particular law. It is not in line with the constitution. So the what the court will do, court will make the law in line with the constitution. Court will inculcate the essence of the essential principles of the constitution, that is justice, liberty, reasonableness, fairness in that particular law, so that it can be constitutionally validated and it can be in line with the constitution. ठीक है, तो वो क्या करेंगे, या तो आप आउटराइटली डिक्लेयर कर दो, आपने एग्जामिन किया, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डिक्लेयर कर दिया कि नहीं ये एग्जिस्ट नहीं कर सकता, इट विल बी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली वॉइड. या सेकंड सिचुएशन, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली वॉइड डिक्लेयर मत करो, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली वैलिड डिक्लेयर करो, बट उसमें जो भी कमियां हैं, है ना, जो भी लैक्यूना है उनको मॉडिफाई कर लो, है ना. जो अब उसमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल एसेंस नहीं है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल फंडामेंटल कोर प्रिंसिपल्स नहीं है, तो वो उसमें इनकलकेट कर दो, तो देन इट विल बी इन लाइन विद द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, है ना. क्योरेबल तो होगा ना, उसमें प्रॉब्लम्स जो है उनको क्योर कर लो, तो that is how the laws will remain valid and it will remain in the society. So these are the two options available with the court. So from here I will be discussing more about these two options, that why the court can choose the other option, the second option instead of this. Okay, so this from here I will be resuming tomorrow, and today I am winding here only, and thank you, take care.